There's something strange about outgrowing people. Nobody announces it. There isn't a meeting. No one sends you an email saying, "Congratulations, your growth has officially made me uncomfortable." It usually happens much more quietly. You get better at something. You become more confident. You start taking your life seriously. Maybe your finances improve. Maybe your career takes off. Maybe you finally start looking after yourself. Maybe you simply stop being available for things that drain you. And then, something changes. Not necessarily in you, in them. The conversations feel different. The jokes feel slightly sharper. The enthusiasm disappears. The person who used to ask about your plans suddenly doesn't seem interested anymore. And here's the fascinating part. If you ask them, "Are you jealous?" they'll probably say no, and they may genuinely believe it, because envy isn't always conscious. Sometimes the person doesn't sit at home thinking, "How dare they succeed?" They simply feel uncomfortable. Then their behavior begins translating that feeling for them, and that's what we're going to explore. What changes first when someone envies your growth? Is it their words, their attention, their support, their humor, their availability, or something even more subtle? Because sometimes the first sign of envy isn't an attack. It's a change in warmth. The first thing that often changes isn't what they say, it's how they feel around you, and you can sometimes sense it before you can explain it. The conversation used to flow. Now it feels forced. They used to ask questions. Now they give short answers. They used to celebrate small wins. Now your good news receives, "Oh, nice." 2 words, somehow carrying the emotional weight of a tax audit. And that's what makes envy difficult to identify. Nothing dramatic happened. Nobody insulted you. Nobody declared war. The relationship simply became colder. Jungian psychology gives us an interesting way to think about this. When another person's growth activates something uncomfortable inside us, the conscious mind may not immediately admit, "I feel inferior." Instead, the emotion leaks into behavior. Less enthusiasm, less curiosity, less warmth, less presence. And sometimes, the person doesn't even realize they're doing it. They're simply experiencing your growth as an emotional discomfort they haven't learned to understand. Here's a funny little test. Think about the people who genuinely care about you. When something good happens to you, what do? They ask questions. How did you do it? How are you feeling? What's next? Curiosity is one of the quietest forms of support. But when envy enters the picture, curiosity can disappear. Suddenly they don't ask. You mention the new opportunity. Silence. You mention the promotion. That's good. You talk about the project you've been building for 6 months. They change the subject. It's almost comical. You could announce that you've just discovered a new planet, and they'd probably say, "Anyway, did you see the weather?" But again, one moment means nothing. We're looking for patterns, because genuine support doesn't require someone to have your exact life. It only requires them to be able to appreciate something good happening to you. After warmth, humor can be the next thing to change. Suddenly your growth becomes a joke. You start exercising. Look at Mr. Fitness. You become successful. Don't forget us when you're famous. You become more confident. Someone has gotten too big for himself. Everyone laughs. You laugh too. But then, you notice something. The joke always travels in one direction. It makes you smaller. Your discipline becomes obsession. Your confidence becomes arrogance. Your ambition becomes desperation. Your boundaries become selfishness. And suddenly, your growth has become the punchline. Humor isn't automatically malicious. Healthy friends tease each other. But repeated humor that consistently reduces your achievements can become a social way of saying, "Come back down here." This is where things get interesting. You tell them something good, they tell you something better. You got promoted, they know someone who became CEO. You bought your first car, they tell you what their car cost. You started a business, they explain how someone else built a bigger one. You aren't even competing. Somehow, you've entered the Olympics, and nobody told you. Comparison is one of the easiest ways for insecurity to protect itself. If your achievement makes me uncomfortable, I can reduce that discomfort by finding someone above you, or by reminding you that I am above you. Either way, the focus shifts away from your accomplishment. The question isn't, can I celebrate you? It becomes, where do I rank compared with you? This one is particularly revealing. You make progress, and someone reaches into the archive. Not yesterday's archive, not last month's archive. We're talking about the National Museum of your past mistakes. Suddenly, they remember everything. That embarrassing thing you did 5 years ago, that job that didn't work, that relationship that ended badly, that time you made the wrong decision. Why? Because your present success creates a problem for their current perception of you. If they can remind themselves and you of who you used to be, they don't have to fully acknowledge who you're becoming. The past becomes a psychological anchor. Don't get too confident. I remember who you were. But here's the truth. Your past can explain you. It doesn't have to imprison you. Here's one of the strangest changes. Someone who barely reacts when you succeed suddenly becomes very attentive when something goes wrong. You launch something. They say nothing. It fails. Suddenly, what happened? You make a mistake. They want the entire story. You experience a setback. They're strangely curious. And sometimes you can feel that they're enjoying the information. Not openly, just enough. This is where envy can reveal itself through emotional asymmetry. Your success receives indifference. Your failure receives attention. Your victory gets silence. Your setback gets questions. That's when you start noticing they aren't necessarily interested in your life. They may be interested in where they believe they stand relative to your life. This is where Jung becomes especially interesting. Your growth doesn't only show what you've achieved. It can reveal what someone else has avoided. You started. They didn't. You changed. They stayed. You took the risk. They kept waiting. And now your life becomes evidence. Evidence that change was possible. Evidence that the excuse wasn't permanent. Evidence that maybe they could have started too. That's uncomfortable, because it's easier to criticize the person who changed than to confront the part of yourself that didn't. This is where the shadow enters. Sometimes what irritates us most about another person is connected to a quality we've neglected in ourselves. Their courage, their discipline, their confidence, their freedom. And instead of saying, "I wish I had more of that," the mind may produce, "I don't like that about them." You succeeded. They explain why it doesn't really count. You worked hard. You were lucky. You built something. You had help. You changed your life. You had an easier situation. You became disciplined. You just have more free time. Notice what's happening. They're not necessarily denying the result. They're reducing its meaning. Because if your success came from qualities they also possess the ability to develop, then your success becomes psychologically uncomfortable. But if your success was simply luck, they don't have to change anything. And that's the seduction of the word lucky. Sometimes luck is real. Of course it is. But sometimes calling someone lucky is easier than admitting, "They did something I haven't done." Now watch what happens socially. Invitations become less frequent. Messages become shorter. Plans become vague. You hear? "We'll see." Maybe next time. "I've been busy." And perhaps they genuinely have been busy. Again, we're looking for patterns. Because envy doesn't always attack. Sometimes it withdraws. Your growth changes the emotional balance. You no longer fit neatly into the role they were accustomed to, and instead of adapting, they create distance. Sometimes distance is healthy. Sometimes it is simply the relationship revealing that the two people are moving in different directions. Eventually, someone may say, "You've changed," and you'll know they're right, because you have. You don't tolerate what you used to tolerate. You don't seek approval the way you used to. You don't explain everything. You don't need to be included everywhere. You don't chase people who withdraw. You don't apologize for having goals. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Some people loved the old version of you because the old version was easier for them, easier to understand, easier to influence, easier to compare themselves against. Your growth didn't necessarily make you better than them. It simply made the old relationship structure impossible to maintain. Here's where we need to complicate the story. Sometimes someone can envy you and still love you. Humans are messy. A person can genuinely care about you and still struggle with comparison. They can be happy for you and secretly wish their life looked more like yours. They can celebrate you while privately feeling behind. That's why envy isn't always hatred. Sometimes envy is pain. Sometimes it's insecurity. Sometimes it's grief over the person they thought they would become. And sometimes the person isn't your enemy at all. They're simply struggling with themselves. That doesn't mean you have to carry their struggle. But understanding it can keep you from turning every uncomfortable relationship into a war. And here's the twist. After everything we've discussed, the most important sign isn't actually what they do. It's what happens inside you. Do you suddenly feel like you need to hide your success? Do you feel guilty for improving? Do you start minimizing your own achievements? Do you become afraid to talk about what you're building? Do you start asking, "Am I making people uncomfortable?" If so, be careful, because now their insecurity is beginning to become your insecurity. You don't have to become arrogant, but you also don't have to become invisible. You can be humble without pretending you haven't grown. If someone envies your growth, you don't need to punish them. You don't need to expose them. You don't need to prove that you're ahead, and you don't need to hide your progress. Just keep growing. Let your behavior remain grounded. Let your success speak quietly. Celebrate people who celebrate you. Give space to people who need it. And understand that not everyone will be able to walk beside you forever. Some people will grow with you. Some will grow away from you. Some will eventually find their own path. And some will spend far too much time looking at yours. That's okay. Their journey is theirs. Yours is yours. Because the goal was never to become someone others envy. The goal was to become someone you respect when you're alone with yourself. And if your growth makes someone uncomfortable, don't immediately assume you're doing something wrong. Just make sure you're growing with humility and keep going.